Good day everyone. So do you want to win on the Mavuika and Sitlali weapon banners? Well, this is going to be the video for you. So on the assumption that you want at least one copy of each of the weapons in as few pulls as possible, I've got a strategy that is proven statistically to give you a bit of an edge. And this edge happens mostly if you lose your first weapon to the standard banner. Now, before we continue and I'll explain all of the little charts and stuff that you see here, this is actually a video I've made previously in December. It was a bit of a rushed video and there were lots of inaccuracies. So this video is a redo of that video, and by the kind grace of Flying Jetpack 1, we've gotten the correct probabilities and stuff that he has provided. And what I've done is I've taken what he's done, just repackaged it a bit, and that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. So let's just get into it. The typical thing that happens when someone wants both of the weapons on the weapon banner is that once you lose your first pull to the standard banner, a lot of people will just use their guarantee and then they'll get their second weapon. But thereafter, a couple of things can happen. You can once again lose to the standard banner, and that's really going to suck. But at least, hey, you've got the guarantee. Or you could get two copies of, let's say, Mavuika or the first weapon and then get your guarantee. Or if you're really lucky, you can just get your second weapon and then be done with the whole thing. Now, this entire probability, if you look at all of these things, this does happen 25% of the time. But let me just quickly take you through a couple of calculations to prove it. The first scenario here has a probability of 6.25% of occurring. It's very simple to work out because all of these first weapon, second weapon, scenarios here, because all of their probabilities are independent, we can just multiply each one of these numbers and there is the resulting figure. And if you sum up the probabilities for each of the scenarios, well, you get 25%, which kind of makes sense. It's 25% of the time this situation's gonna happen. And as you can note here, pretty much like 60% of the time, if you're in this bad situation, you're gonna have to go through 4 weapons. In other words, this is like 15 divided by 25. So that's not really good. But there is a bit of hope. Well, the hope is you can get really lucky, but for those of us that have been really unlucky, what you can do is if you lose to the standard banner weapon, the best thing you can do is cancel your fate points and reset them immediately. So what you'll notice from the bottom figure here and the top figure is that this little star marking the guarantee being in effect has now been taken away, but something really cool happens. So basically, all of these 3 bad probability scenarios, well, they're still here, but a couple of things have changed with regards to their probabilities. And in fact, there is now a new scenario here with a much higher probability that has popped up, which is really the trick behind all of this. Or I should rather say that the trick behind all of this is that MiHoYo guarantees that after you've lost your first weapon to the standard banner, that your next weapon is going to be either one of the first or the second weapons, which is the whole point to making this work. But regardless, what you can see now is that because we don't have the guarantee here in effect anymore, we can now say that, hey, if I get to scenario 1, I lose to the standard banner, I get, let's say, my first weapon with a 50% probability, I can lose again and then get my final guarantee. But the probability of this scenario now occurring is much lower than the top probability here. And this is the crucial thing. You can see some of the other scenarios playing out. Do keep in mind the little star here indicating when the guarantee is in effect. But what has happened now is that you've shifted a significant amount of the bad probabilities of getting these 4 weapons. In other words, this 15%, you've shifted a lot of that now. You've shifted like a bulk of that, like 7% to this new scenario 4, which you can see will give you 3 weapons. In other words, it's going to save you a lot more primo gems when you decide to go for this weapon. And in fact, scenario 4 is quite interesting. Effectively, once you've lost and you've gotten, let's say, the Sitlali weapon, and you've by the reset mechanics, you can then guarantee Mavuika's weapon, which is the best scenario and it's the most likely to happen out of all of these. But how do we know that this is statistically better? Because all the good outcomes are still the exact same. Well, the way in which we work this out is by trying to get the mean number of weapons, or the average number of weapons that you'll get from the weapon banner. And that is pretty simple to work out. You effectively just take the probability of each scenario multiplied by the number of weapons for that scenario, and then effectively you get 2.64. So on average, for the usual strategy, you'll get about 2.64 weapons when doing this over and over and over. And your standard deviation, there is the formula there as well that involves a bit of squaring and square rooting, not that difficult, is going to be 0.74. But this is where the new scenario is, or the new strategy is just so good, because you can see there is immediately, like a reduction in your average number of weapons that you're going to get, but your standard deviation, in other words, the variability in the number of weapons it's going to take for you to get both of your desired weapons, that has been reduced by quite a bit. So the totality of these two effects means that statistically you are better off if you lose your first weapon to the standard banner. And you can also see here in the little drop downs here, let me just quickly make this slightly smaller, the probability of you taking 2 weapons to complete or to get both of your desired weapons, that's going to happen 51.56% of the time. It's the same under scenario 1 and 2, but these bad probabilities of 15.63, well, that has now been reduced significantly, and you've shifted the bad probabilities to a much better outcome where it's only going to take you 3 weapons to get your 2 desired weapons. In other words, it's going to save you a lot more primo gems. So that's basically how the maths works. It's pretty easy, it's pretty transparent. I'll link the spreadsheet in the video description, but we can just basically go through some of the conclusions that I've written up here. You can see the whole secret behind this is that you're reducing the probability of having to take 4 weapons to get the 2 that you want, and you've reduced that probability slightly with the new guaranteed mechanic. And then you can see this reduction in the mean and the standard deviation. And this reduction in the standard deviation is the ultimate takeaway. You're making it more consistent for you to get 3 or 2 weapons rather than 4 weapons when attempting to get at least 1 copy of both of the limited weapons that Hoyo has put up. So yeah, that is the strategy. Quite a mouthful. It'll be quite a bit to take in, but the important thing is that there is a new scenario that unlocks, and this scenario takes away some of the worse outcomes that you would get if you didn't use the new strategy but just the old strategy. Right, that's what I've got to say about it. I know probabilities can sometimes be very intimidating, but trust me, the maths is actually pretty simple, and I do encourage you to follow along in the spreadsheet just for your own education. And if you're going to use this on the weapon banner, let me know. I got pretty lucky when I wished. I got scenario 7, I got Citlali's weapon, and then immediately I got Mavwika's weapon thereafter for a guarantee, and early as well. So I don't have Citlali, but well, if I ever do get her, at least we've got the weapon. So it would have been interesting to lose, because then I could have shown you like how the new tech works, but maybe someone else can show that. Alright guys, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching.